Director Amanda Wells led Lyra through the halls of Luna Station, while Jake and Dr. Sullivan followed behind. The station was built inside the moon and had been humanity's most secret research facility for over 20 years. Scientists from all over human space came here to work on classified projects. Lyra looked around with wide eyes as they walked. The human architecture was so different from Zephyrian buildings. Everything here had curves and soft edges, while Zephyrian structures were all sharp angles and hard surfaces. The lighting was warm and yellow instead of the cold blue lights her people preferred. They arrived at a comfortable room that had been prepared for Lyra. It had a bed, desk, and large window showing Earth in the distance. Dr. Sullivan checked to make sure Lyra was not tired from the journey while Director Wells explained what would happen next. "We need to understand your abilities better," Director Wells said through Lisa's translation computer. "If you can really access Zephyrian communications, then you might be able to help us stop this Project Void strike." Lyra sat on the bed and nodded slowly. "I help if I can, but using Nexus is dangerous for me." Dr. Sullivan looked concerned. "What kind of danger?" Lyra touched her silver scales and spoke in her own language. Lisa translated her words. "She says that each time she connects to the Nexus, it hurts her brain. The silver scales are not just for show, they are part of her nervous system. When she uses her abilities, the scales get hot and cause pain." Dr. Sullivan immediately began running medical scans on Lyra. The results were fascinating and troubling. Her neural pathways are definitely different from baseline Zephyrian biology, but I can see signs of damage. If she has been using her abilities for a long time, it might be slowly killing her. Director Wells called in Dr. Ben Carter, the station's best linguist and computer expert. Ben had spent years studying Zephyrian technology and language. He was excited to meet Lyra and learn about the Nexus from someone who could actually use it. "The Nexus is something we have only heard rumors about," Ben explained to Jake. "We know the Zephyrians coordinate their military actions across vast distances, but we never understood how they do it so quickly. If Lyra can show us how it works, we might be able to interfere with it." Over the next few days, Ben and Dr. Sullivan worked together to understand Lyra's abilities. They discovered that the silver scales contained quantum-entangled neurons that could communicate instantly across any distance. It was technology far beyond anything humans had developed. Lyra demonstrated her abilities by connecting to the Nexus and gathering intelligence about Zephyrian fleet movements. Each time she did this, her scales glowed brightly and she grimaced in pain. Dr. Sullivan monitored her vital signs and became more worried with each demonstration. "Her brain temperature rises dangerously high when she connects," Dr. Sullivan reported to Director Wells. "If she continues using her abilities at this rate, she will suffer permanent brain damage within weeks." Ben had an idea. "What if we could build an interface that helps her connect more safely, something that shares the load between her natural abilities and human technology?" The project became top priority. Ben worked with Chief Engineer Alex Brooks to design a device that could link human computers with Lyra's quantum-entangled neurons. It was experimental and dangerous, but it might allow Lyra to access the Nexus without killing herself. During this time, Lyra spent hours talking with Jake and the other humans. She was fascinated by human culture and emotions. She asked many questions about friendship, love, and family relationships. These concepts were alien to her, because Zephyrians lived in a collective society where individual thoughts and feelings were discouraged. "Why do humans choose to help each other?" Lyra asked Jake one day. "Zephyrians only help when the Nexus tells them to help." Jake thought about how to explain it simply. "We help because it feels right. We care about other people even when we do not know them. We want everyone to be happy and safe." Lyra was quiet for a long time. "I think I understand. When you helped me, I felt something new, something warm inside. Is this what you call caring?" Jake smiled. "Yes, that is caring. And I think you care about us too. That is why you warned us about your father's plan." Meanwhile, the interface device was ready for testing. Ben and Alex had created a headset that could connect to Lyra's silver scales and help regulate the quantum energy flow. Dr. Sullivan monitored everything to make sure it was safe. The first test was successful. Lyra connected to the Nexus through the interface and experienced much less pain than before. She was able to access detailed information about Zephyrian military plans and download it to human computers. What she found was terrifying. Project Void Strike was not just one weapon, but a series of quantum bombs that could destabilize entire star systems. The Zephyrians had built 3 of these weapons and planned to use them on Earth, Mars, and the Alpha Centauri colonies. Even worse, the timeline had been moved up. The attack would happen in 23 days, not 47. Supreme. War Commander Thane had accelerated the schedule because he suspected his daughter had been captured by humans. "We have to warn Earth and all the colonies," Director Wells said. "But we also need to find a way to stop these weapons." Lyra offered to help further, but Dr. Sullivan was worried about her health. "Each connection is still causing damage even with the interface. Her brain cannot handle much more of this." Ben had been studying the data Lyra had gathered and made an important discovery. The Nexus is not just a communication network. It is the central control system for all Zephyrian technology, including their weapons. If we could disrupt the Nexus itself, we might be able to stop Project Void Strike completely. Lyra explained that the Nexus had a central core located on the Zephyrian capital world of Zentar. It was heavily guarded and protected by multiple fleets. No human ship had ever gotten close to Zentar and returned. But if small team could reach the core, Lyra said in her improving English, they could damage the whole network. All Zephyrian ships would lose coordination. Admiral Hayes arrived at Luna Station to discuss the situation with Director Wells and the research team. He listened to their reports and studied the intelligence Lyra had provided. Finally, he made a decision that would change the course of the war. "We are going to attempt Operation Mindbreak," Admiral Hayes announced. "A small strike team will infiltrate Zentar and destroy the Nexus core while our main fleet creates a diversion. This is extremely dangerous and probably a suicide mission." Jake volunteered immediately. "I will lead the ground team, sir. My crew knows Lyra and she trusts us. We will need her to guide us through the Nexus." Dr. Sullivan objected strongly. "Lyra cannot handle that kind of strain on her nervous system. The mission would kill her even if everything else went perfectly." Lyra spoke up before anyone could translate. "I must help. My people kill all humans if I not try to stop them. Better I die trying to save Earth than live knowing I could have helped." Her words silenced the room. This small alien girl was willing to sacrifice her life to save the people who had shown her kindness. It was the most human thing any of them had ever heard. Admiral Hayes looked at each member of the team. "We have 20 days to prepare. Dr. Carter and Engineer Brooks will work on improving the interface. Dr. Sullivan will monitor Lyra's health and determine how long she can safely operate. Captain Morrison will select his team and plan the infiltration route." As the meeting ended, Jake looked at Lyra and saw determination in her green eyes. She had made her choice, and nothing would change her mind. The fate of 2 civilizations now depended on a secret mission to the heart of enemy territory. Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the UES Defiance and watched the stars through the large windows. The ship moved slowly through space near the Kepler 442 system. 3 years had passed since the war with the Zephyrian Empire began, and humans were losing badly. The aliens had better weapons and bigger ships. Every month brought news of another human colony destroyed or captured. Jake was tired of running patrols that seemed to do nothing. His crew worked hard, but they rarely saw any real action. Most of the time they just flew around empty space looking for enemy ships that were never there. The Zephyrians were too smart to fight fair battles. They preferred to attack weak targets and disappear before help could arrive. The bridge was quiet except for the soft hum of computers and life support systems. Lisa Chang sat at her communication station checking for any messages from other human ships. Dr. Kate Sullivan was in the medical bay reviewing files about alien biology. The rest of the crew went about their normal duties. Jake had been thinking about his family back on Earth when the alarm started ringing. Lisa turned around quickly and looked at her screens. Her face showed surprise and confusion. "Captain, I am picking up a distress signal," Lisa said. "It is very weak and the signal is strange." Jake walked over to look at her computer screen. The signal pattern was unlike anything he had seen before. It was not human. but it was also different from normal Zephyrian communications. "Where is it coming from?" Jake asked. Lisa worked on her computer for a few seconds. "About 2 million kilometers away. The signal is coming from something very small, maybe an escape pod or lifeboat." Jake thought about what to do. It could be a trap. The Zephyrians were known for setting traps to catch human ships, but it could also be someone who really needed help. Jake had joined the Space Navy to protect people and save lives. "Take us closer, but keep our weapons ready," Jake ordered. "If this is a trap, we need to be able to fight back quickly." The Defiance changed direction and moved toward the source of the signal. As they got closer, the ship's sensors began to pick up more details. It was definitely a small escape pod. The pod was damaged and losing power. Whoever was inside would die soon if they were not rescued. "I am detecting one life form inside the pod," said Tony Martinez from the sensor station. "But the readings are very strange. This is not a human." Jake felt his heart beat faster. An alien asking for help was something he had never expected. All the aliens they had met before were trying to kill humans. Why would one of them need rescue from humans? "Could it be one of ours who got injured and is showing up wrong on sensors?" Jake asked. Tony checked his readings again and shook his head. "No, sir. This is definitely not human. The life signs are too different." Jake had to make a decision quickly. The pod was dying and soon there would be nothing left to rescue. Could play it safe and just leave. No one would blame him for not helping an enemy. But something inside him said this was important. "Bring the pod into Cargo Bay 2, Jake ordered. "Get a full security team down there with weapons ready. Dr. Sullivan should come too in case medical help is needed." The crew worked fast to bring the pod aboard. Jake went down to the cargo bay with 6 Marines carrying weapons. Dr. Sullivan arrived with her medical equipment. Everyone stood back as the pod's door opened with a soft hiss. Inside was something Jake had never expected to see. A young Zephyrian female lay unconscious on the pod's small bed. But she was different from the Zephyrian warriors humans had fought before. Those aliens were huge and covered in dark blue scales. This one was much smaller, and her scales were bright silver that seemed to glow in the light. Dr. Sullivan moved forward carefully to check if the alien was still alive. "She is breathing but very weak," the doctor said. "Her body temperature is too low and she has lost a lot of blood." The alien's eyes opened slowly. They were large and green like emeralds. She looked around at all the humans staring at her and tried to speak. The words that came out were in her own language, but Jake could hear fear in her voice. "Does anyone understand what she is saying?" Jake asked. Lisa had brought a translation computer with her. She connected it to the pod's computer and tried to figure out the alien's words. "I think she is asking for help. She keeps saying one word over and over, but I cannot translate it yet." The alien tried to sit up but was too weak. Dr. Sullivan helped her lie back down and began checking for injuries. The alien watched the doctor work and seemed surprised that a human was being gentle with her. "We need to get her to medical bay," Dr. Sullivan said. "She needs treatment right away or she will die." Jake nodded and ordered the Marines to help carry the alien to the ship's hospital. As they moved her, the alien grabbed Jake's arm with surprising strength. She looked into his eyes and spoke again in her own language. Her voice was urgent, like she was trying to warn him about something important. "What is she trying to tell us?" Jake wondered out loud. Lisa worked on the translation computer while they walked. "I think she is saying something about danger, and something about Earth, but I cannot be sure yet." They reached the medical bay and Dr. Sullivan began working to save the alien's life. Jake stood nearby and watched the strange silver-scaled creature. He had a feeling that rescuing this alien was going to change everything. Something about her was different and important. The way she looked at them was not like an enemy, but like someone who needed friends. Hours passed as Dr. Sullivan worked. The alien slept while medicines helped heal her body. Jake stayed nearby in case she woke up and tried to communicate again. He had so many questions, but they would have to wait until she was strong enough to answer them. Finally, the alien opened her eyes again and looked around. When she saw Jake sitting next to her bed, she tried to speak. This time her words sounded different. Jake realized she was trying to speak human language. "Help," she said in broken English. "Must warn. Danger coming." Jake leaned forward when he heard the alien speak English. Her voice was soft and had a musical quality that was very different from the harsh voices of Zephyrian warriors they had heard in battle recordings. She was trying hard to form the words correctly, but her mouth was not made for human speech. "What is your name?" Jake asked slowly and clearly. The alien thought for a moment. "Lyra," she said. "My name is Lyra." Dr. Sullivan finished checking Lyra's vital signs and looked pleased. Her condition is much better now. The medicine is working and her body is healing fast, much faster than a human would heal. Lyra tried to sit up again, and this time she was strong enough. She looked around the medical bay with curiosity. Everything here was different from Zephyrian technology. The computers looked different and the lights were warmer and softer. "You help me," Lyra said to Jake. "Why you help enemy?" Jake was surprised by the question. "You needed help. That is what humans do. We help people who are in trouble." Lyra stared at him like she could not believe what he said. "Zephyrians not help enemies. Zephyrians destroy enemies." Lisa came into the medical bay carrying the translation computer. She had been working for hours to understand Lyra's language better. "Captain, I have made progress with the translation program. I can understand more of what she says now." Jake was glad to hear this. They needed to know what Lyra was trying to warn them about. "Lyra, you said something about danger coming to Earth. What did you mean?" Lyra's expression became very serious and scared. She spoke quickly in her own language while Lisa typed on the translation computer. The computer worked to change her words into English. "She says her father is planning something terrible," Lisa read from the screen. "Something called Project Void Strike. It will destroy Earth completely." Jake felt cold fear in his stomach. "When?" Lyra held up 4 fingers, then 3 more. 47 days, she said in English. Dr. Sullivan gasped. "That is not much time." Jake needed to know more, but he also needed to contact Admiral Hayes at Fleet Command. This information was too important to wait. "Lisa, send a priority message to Admiral Hayes. Tell him we have captured a Zephyrian who claims to have information about an attack on Earth." While Lisa sent the message, Jake turned back to Lyra. "Why are you warning us? Why are you helping humans?" Lyra was quiet for a long time. She seemed to be deciding whether to trust them with more secrets. Finally, she spoke again in her own language and Lisa translated. "She says she is different from other Zephyrians. She has abilities that others do not have. Her father wanted to use these abilities for the war, but she refused to help him." Jake looked at Lyra's silver scales. He had never seen a Zephyrian with that color before. All the ones in the intelligence files had dark blue or black scales. "What makes you different?" Lyra touched her silver scales and spoke softly. Lisa worked to translate her words. "She says the silver color means she is one of the touched. It is very rare. Only a few Zephyrians in each generation are born this way." "What does that mean?" Dr. Sullivan asked. Lyra seemed to understand the question even before Lisa translated it. She pointed to her head and said something that made the translation computer work hard to find the right words. She says she can connect to something called the Nexus. It is how all Zephyrians share information across space. But only the touched can access it directly. Jake began to understand why this was so important. "You mean you can listen to their military communications?" Lyra nodded. "Yes. I know all battle plans. I know where fleets go. I know everything." The implications hit Jake like a physical blow. If Lyra could really access Zephyrian military networks, then she was the most valuable intelligence asset humans had ever captured. But it also meant the Zephyrians would do anything to get her back or kill her to protect their secrets. Admiral Hayes's reply came back faster than Jake expected. The message was short and direct. "Bring the alien to Luna Station immediately. Maximum security protocols. This is now classified at the highest level." Jake showed the message to Dr. Sullivan and Lisa. "We are going to Luna Station. Get Lyra ready for travel and make sure she is comfortable. She is now the most important person on this ship. During the journey to Luna Station, Jake spent hours talking with Lyra through Lisa's translation computer. He learned that she had escaped from her home world in the stolen escape pod. Her father's Supreme War Commander Thane had discovered her refusal to help with Project Void Strike and ordered her execution. Lyra had friends who helped her escape, but they were probably dead. Now, she seemed very sad when she talked about them. Jake noticed that she showed emotions much more than other Zephyrians. In battle recordings, the enemy aliens always seemed cold and emotionless like machines. "Why do you care about humans?" Jake asked her one day. Lyra thought about the question for a long time. "Humans different. You show kindness to enemies. You help me when you could kill me. Zephyrians not understand this." Dr. Sullivan had been studying Lyra's biology and found amazing things. "Her brain structure is completely different from normal Zephyrians," she told Jake. "She has extra neural pathways that might explain her ability to access their network." On the third day of their journey, something strange happened. Lyra suddenly became very agitated and started speaking rapidly in her own language. Lisa worked frantically to translate. She says Zephyrian ships are coming. 3 ships approaching. From the Vega system. They will be here in 6 hours. Jake checked the sensors but found nothing. How can she know that? Lyra pointed to her head and said in broken English, "I listened to Nexus. Ships coming for me." Jake had to make a choice. He could ignore Lyra's warning and continue to Luna Station, or he could trust her and try to avoid the enemy ships. If she was right, then she had just proved her abilities were real. If she was wrong, then maybe she was lying about everything. He decided to trust her. "Change course for the Proxima route. We will take the long way to Luna Station. 5.5 hours. Later, their sensors detected 3 Zephyrian warships exactly where Lyra said they would be. The enemy ship searched the area for 2 days before giving up and leaving. Jake realized that Lyra had just saved their lives. She really could access the Zephyrian network, and her information was completely accurate. This changed everything about the war. When they finally reached Luna Station, Jake was met by Director Amanda Wells and a team of scientists and military officers. They all wanted to study Lyra and learn her secrets. This alien could be the key to winning the war, Director Wells told Jake. "If she can really access their communications network, then we can predict every move they make." Jake watched as they took Lyra away for debriefing. She looked back at him with trust in her green eyes. She had saved his ship and crew by warning them about the enemy patrol. Now it was time to see if she could save all of humanity from Project Void Strike. Theo. Fate of Earth and every human colony depended on the secrets locked inside the mind of one small alien girl with silver scales. Admiral Hayes stood in the war room at Luna Station looking at the tactical displays. 20 days had passed since they learned about Project Void Strike, and now the mission was ready to begin. The human fleet had assembled in secret at the edge of the solar system while the strike team prepared for their dangerous journey to Zentar. Jake checked his equipment one final time. He would lead a team of 5 people into the heart of enemy territory. Dr. Sullivan would provide medical support for Lyra during the mission. Engineer Alex Brooks would handle the technical aspects of destroying the Nexus core. Communications. Officer Lisa Chang would maintain contact with the fleet. Marine Commander Scott Davis would provide security and tactical expertise. Lyra wore a special suit designed by Ben Carter and Alex Brooks. The suit contained an advanced version of the neural interface that would help her access the Nexus without dying immediately. Dr. Sullivan estimated that Lyra could use her abilities for maybe 6 hours before the damage became fatal. The strike team would travel in 2 prototype stealth ships that used modified Zephyrian technology. Lyra had helped engineers understand how to make the ships invisible to Zephyrian sensors. The ships were small and fast but had limited weapons and life support. Captain Morrison gathered his team in the briefing room for final instructions. "We have one chance to do this right. Admiral Hayes will attack the Zephyrian fleet near Jupiter to draw their attention while we slip past their defenses. Lyra will guide us through the Nexus to avoid patrols and security systems." Lyra looked pale but determined. The past weeks of preparation had been hard on her. Each time she tested the interface, her silver scales grew dimmer and Dr. Sullivan detected more neural damage. But Lyra never complained and never asked to be removed from the mission. "How long to reach Zentar?" Scott Davis asked. 18 hours, at maximum speed," Alex Brooks replied. "But we will need to stop twice to recalibrate the stealth systems. Lyra will need to connect to the Nexus during those stops to check for enemy activity." Dr. Sullivan had prepared special medicines to help reduce the pain Lyra would experience. The drugs were experimental, and their long-term effects were unknown. But they might give Lyra enough strength to complete the mission. As the team prepared to board their ships, Admiral Hayes pulled Jake aside for a private conversation. "Captain, you understand that this mission is extremely important. If you succeed, you might end the war and save billions of lives, but the chances of success are very small." Jake nodded. "I understand, sir. But we have to try. Lyra is risking everything to help us. The least we can do is make sure her sacrifice means something." The two stealth ships launched from Luna Station and began their journey toward enemy space. Jake's ship carried him, Dr. Sullivan, and Lyra. The second ship carried Lisa Chang, Alex Brooks, and Scott Davis. The ships stayed close together but maintained radio silence to avoid detection. 6 hours into the journey, they reached their first stop point. Lyra put on her interface headset and connected to the Nexus. Her silver scales began to glow as she searched for information about Zephyrian fleet positions and patrol routes. 3 patrol ships in the Vega system, Lyra reported through the translation computer. "Large fleet moving toward Jupiter. Father is taking the bait." Dr. Sullivan monitored Lyra's vital signs during the connection. Heart rate elevated but stable, brain temperature rising but within acceptable limits. She can continue. They adjusted their course to avoid the patrol ships and continued toward Zentar. The second stop went smoothly, but Lyra looked exhausted afterward. Dr. Sullivan gave her medicine for the pain and nutrients to help her body recover. "Are you sure you can do this?" Dr. Sullivan asked quietly. Lyra smiled weakly. "I must do this. My people need to learn that there is a better way than war and control. Humans showed me what freedom means." As they approached the Zentar system, Lyra made her final connection to the Nexus. This time she needed to do more than just gather information. She had to actively interfere with the network to hide their ships from the massive defense systems protecting the capital world. The strain was enormous. Lyra's scales blazed with silver light, and she gritted her teeth against the pain. But she managed to create blind spots in the sensor network that allowed both stealth ships to slip past the orbital defenses. Zentar was a beautiful world with purple oceans and silver continents. Cities covered the surface in geometric patterns that looked like circuit boards from space. At the center of the largest city was a massive pyramid that housed the Nexus core. "That is where we need to go," Lyra said weakly. "The core is at the bottom of the pyramid, but the building is heavily guarded and there are security systems I cannot disable from here." Jake studied the pyramid through the ship's cameras. It was enormous, easily 10 times larger than any human building. Getting inside would be almost impossible. But Alex Brooks had an idea. "We do not need to fight our way in," Alex said. "We can use the maintenance tunnels. Every building has service access for repairs and upgrades. Lyra can guide us through the tunnel system using her knowledge of the pyramid's layout." They landed. The ship's in a desert area 50 kilometers from the city. The team put on environmental suits and began the long walk toward the pyramid. Lyra had to use her abilities several more times to help them avoid security patrols and surveillance systems. Each connection to the Nexus was killing her a little more. Dr. Sullivan could see the damage accumulating in Lyra's brain scans. The alien girl was literally burning out her nervous system to help them complete the mission. They reached the pyramid as the planet's twin suns were setting. Alex Brooks found a maintenance entrance exactly where Lyra said it would be. The tunnel system was dark and confusing, but Lyra guided them through the maze of passages toward the center of the building. The Nexus core was not what any of them expected. Instead of a computer or machine, they found a living creature. The core was a massive brain-like organism that filled an enormous chamber. Thousands of cables and tubes connected it to systems throughout the pyramid and beyond. "This is how the Zephyrians have been controlled for so long," Lyra whispered in amazement. "The core is not just a communication system. It is a living mind that has been directing our entire civilization." Scott Davis looked at the creature with disgust. "How do we destroy something like that?" Alex Brooks studied the technical system surrounding the core. "We can overload it. If we feed too much energy into the neural pathways, the creature will die. But we need to access the main control systems." Lyra knew what she had to do. For the last time, she activated her interface and connected directly to the Nexus core. The pain was incredible, but she pushed through it. Instead of just accessing information, she began to share something else with the massive alien mind. She shared her memories of human kindness, the moment when Jake decided to rescue her instead of leaving her to die, Dr. Sullivan's gentle care during her recovery, the friendship and trust she had experienced with humans, all the emotions and individual thoughts that Zephyrians had been denied for millennia. The effect was immediate and catastrophic. The core began convulsing as Lyra's memories spread through the Nexus to every Zephyrian in the galaxy. For the first time in their history, her people began to experience individual consciousness and personal emotions. Across thousands of worlds, Zephyrian soldiers stopped following orders and started asking questions. The rigid military hierarchy collapsed as beings who had never had independent thoughts suddenly found themselves capable of choice. Lyra collapsed as the neural feedback destroyed the last of her quantum-entangled neurons. Dr. Sullivan caught her as she fell and immediately began trying to stabilize her condition. The silver scales that had marked her as special faded to ordinary gray as her connection to the Nexus died forever. Dr. Sullivan worked frantically to save Lyra's life as alarms began ringing throughout the pyramid. The Nexus core writhed in agony as millions of individual thoughts flooded through its ancient mind. The creature that had controlled Zephyrian civilization for thousands of years was dying. "Her brain activity is dropping fast," Dr. Sullivan said while injecting medicine into Lyra's unconscious form. "The neural feedback has caused massive damage. I need to get her to proper medical equipment immediately." Jake helped carry Lyra toward the maintenance tunnels while Alex Brooks and Scott Davis destroyed the control systems around the dying core. They needed to make sure the creature could never recover and regain control over the Zephyrian people. "Lisa," Chang's voice crackled through their communication devices. "Captain, something incredible is happening across the galaxy. Zephyrian fleets everywhere have stopped attacking. Ships are just floating in space and not responding to orders." As they carried Lyra through the tunnels, Jake could hear chaos spreading through the pyramid above them. Zephyrian guards were abandoning their posts as they experienced individual consciousness for the first time. The rigid order that had defined their society was collapsing. They reached their ships just as the first explosions began inside the pyramid. The Nexus core was destroying itself as billions of free thoughts overwhelmed its ancient neural pathways. The entire building started to collapse as the creature that had been its heart finally died. Dr. Sullivan worked desperately during the flight back to human space. Lyra's condition was critical and she needed surgery that could only be performed at Luna Station. Jake pushed their ship to maximum speed while praying they would arrive in time. Admiral Hayes contacted them with updates about the battle near Jupiter. The Zephyrian fleet had suddenly stopped fighting and was sending confused messages asking for new orders. When no orders came from the Nexus, the alien ships simply drifted in space while their crews struggled to understand what was happening to them. Back at Luna Station, Dr. Sullivan and a team of specialists worked for 18 hours to repair the damage to Lyra's brain. They used a combination of human medical technology and Zephyrian bioengineering techniques that Lyra had taught them during her recovery. Jake waited outside the medical bay with the rest of his team. They had succeeded in their mission, but the cost had been enormous. Lyra had sacrificed her special abilities and nearly her life to free her people from the control of the Nexus. Finally, Dr. Sullivan emerged from surgery looking exhausted but hopeful. "She is alive and stable. The brain damage is extensive but not fatal. She will never be able to access the Nexus again, but she should make a full recovery otherwise." Jake felt relief wash over him. Lyra had become more than just an alien refugee. She was a friend who had chosen to help humanity, even when it meant destroying everything that made her special among her own people. 3 days later, Lyra woke up in the medical bay. Her silver scales had turned completely gray and would never glow again. But her green eyes were clear and alert as she looked around at the humans who had become her family. "Did it work?" she asked in English that was much better than before. Jake smiled and sat down next to her bed. "It worked perfectly. The Zephyrian Empire has collapsed. Your people are free to make their own choices for the first time in their history." Over the following weeks, amazing reports came in from across the galaxy. Zephyrian worlds were declaring independence and establishing their own governments. The rigid military hierarchy had been replaced by thousands of different societies, each finding their own path. Some Zephyrian groups wanted to continue fighting humans, but they could not coordinate their efforts without the Nexus. Most alien worlds chose to focus on rebuilding their societies and exploring what it meant to have individual freedom. The most surprising development came when Supreme War Commander Thane himself contacted Admiral Hayes directly. The stern military leader was struggling to understand the emotions he was experiencing for the first time. He wanted to discuss peace between their species. "I remember my daughter now," Thane said through translation equipment during the first peace conference. "For years the Nexus made me forget that I loved her. It made me try to kill her for refusing to follow orders. I am sorry for what my people have done to yours." Lyra served as translator and mediator during the peace talks. Her understanding of both human and Zephyrian cultures made her the perfect bridge between the two species. She helped negotiate agreements that would establish joint colonies where humans and Zephyrians could live together and learn from each other. Jake was promoted to admiral and given command of the first mixed human Zephyrian fleet. The ships in his fleet were crewed by members of both species working together to explore new worlds and establish peaceful contact with other alien civilizations. Dr. Sullivan continued studying Zephyrian biology and developed medical treatments that helped newly freed Zephyrians deal with the psychological trauma of sudden individual consciousness.
Many aliens needed therapy to learn how to make personal decisions after lifetimes of following orders from the Nexus. Lyra moved to Earth, where she worked as an ambassador, helping to establish cultural exchange programs. She learned to enjoy
human art, music, and literature. The concepts of creativity and imagination were completely new to her people, who had been denied such things by the Nexus. 1 year after the mission to Zentar, Jake visited Lyra at her home on Earth. She had a garden where she grew both human and Zephyrian plants. The mixture of species thriving together was a symbol of the new relationship between their civilizations. "Do you ever regret what you did?" Jake asked as they walked through the garden. Lyra touched her gray scales and smiled. "I lost my connection to the Nexus, but I gained something much better. I learned what it means to choose my own path and care about others. I learned what friendship and love really are." Jake looked up at the stars where human and Zephyrian ships now traveled together in peace. "Your secret really did change the fate of the war. You saved both our species." Lyra shook her head. "I did not save anyone by myself. Humans saved me, first by showing kindness to an enemy. You taught me that there was a better way than violence and control. The secret was not my abilities. The secret was that even the strongest collective mind cannot resist the power of individual choice and compassion." The galaxy was a different place now. Instead of two civilizations locked in deadly conflict, there were thousands of worlds working together to build a better future. The war was over not because one side had defeated the other, but because both sides had learned that cooperation was stronger than conquest. Children grew up learning about the alien girl whose secret changed everything. They learned that sometimes the most powerful weapon against hatred and control was simple kindness toward someone in need, and they learned that even one person choosing to do the right thing could change the fate of entire civilizations. The stars no longer seemed cold and empty. They were filled with the light of countless worlds where different species lived together, in peace. And at the center of it all was the memory of a young Zephyrian girl who had chosen to sacrifice everything she was in order to give her people the gift of freedom. Lyra's story became legend But the real lesson was much simpler. When beings from different worlds treat each other with respect and compassion, amazing things become possible. The secret that changed the fate of the war was not hidden in alien technology or military strategy. It was found in the basic, human, truth that everyone deserves kindness regardless of where they come from or what they look like. The galaxy would never forget the girl with silver scales who taught two civilizations how to choose love over fear.